Okay, so this is the recorded session of sorry. This is the recorded session of our chapter 9, microeconomics. Sorry for this. So I hope you will find this video beneficial for you. So let me start. Okay, here. Um, As I showed you last week, we had the perfect competition, and if you remember, I also mentioned the producers, the concept of consumers, and also the producers surplus. So here we go again. We have the consumer surplus over here. Um, the part below the demand curve here, the consumer surplus. I already explained to you the definition of the consumer surplus. So when we have, for example, here consumer A, yeah, the willingness to pay is $10, yeah, and then we have also consumer B, the willingness to pay is $7, and also consumer C, the willingness to pay is $5, which is equal to the market price. So according to consumer A, from the perspective of this consumer, so this very consumer has a consumer surplus of 10 minus 5, so 5 as a consumer surplus because his willingness to pay is $10 while the market price is $5. So if we put all the consumers' willingness to pay all together, we have the overall consumer surplus, which is the very area below the demand curve. And we have also the producer surplus with the same concept. The producers, remember, the price is the incentive for every producers. So here, the producers, for example, in producer A, maybe he can actually endure uh, to sell it at the price of, for example, 4, yeah, here, which is actually below 5. And if we put all of the producers all together, yeah, with the area above the demand, above the supply curve, below the price. So this is the area of the producer surplus with the, if the consumer has the willingness to pay, the producers has the willingness to produce, yeah, given the price below the market price. So we have all in all together, the profits or um, the benefit for the consumer and the benefit for the producers. The area below the demand curve is the consumer surplus, and the area above the supply curve is the producer surplus. So consumer surplus and also the producers surplus. So how about if we exercise some of the policy dynamics? For example, here we have the price, yeah, that is set above the price max over here. So we have the, for example, the price of the good has been regulated to be no higher than P max. Oh, sorry. So we have the market price at P0. So this is the if you remember the case of CPO, yeah, the cooking oil in 2022. So the government had also this kind of policy. So the market price is P0. At that time, the market price was so much higher. The, and then the government decided at that time to put the price below the market price, which is basically the idea of having the price below the market price so that the consumer can attain the price and it can actually exercise their consumer surplus. But the problem is when you set, for example, this P, yeah, the price below the market price, or we can call it the ceiling price over here, this creates shortage. This is actually economics 101, right? So when the price is below the market price, the demand should be, quite very much overwhelming. So we had this shortage of quantity of the cooking oil. At that time, already suggest the Minister of Trade and the Ministers of Trade. We had these, the echelon, the Director General and domestic trade. So at that time, I told Pak Oke, Dirjen Perdagangan Dalam Negeri, so the Director General for the domestic trade. At the time, I told him that this will create scarcity in the market, and then afterward we had this kind of scarcity. So I told him before, and this is actually already in the textbook. So this is not, a rocket science. When you set the price below the market price, you will face and you will endure shortage. And the government at that time couldn't do anything with the shortage, and it was becoming, a catastrophe at the time. Yeah, from January, February, March, April, and so on and so forth. So when you set the price here, and then when you can actually you cannot control the production. And at that time, the one that was actually very, wrong, that the government tried to ask the producers voluntary, yeah, which is voluntary. The government cannot control the production, and voila, the result, the consequences actually shortage everywhere in the market. So it's actually very, very wrong. Yeah, you had this price control below the market price, and then yeah, the end result will be a shortage over here. Of course, hypothetically speaking, it can actually, create consumer surplus over here, because when you reduce the price, the consumer surplus will be increased. But also some part of the consumer surplus will be reduced because the producers now only can produce this much, yeah, because yeah, at a very low price, there is no incentive to produce. Even at that time, the government tried, were trying also to, give subsidy for the price gap, but until now, the price subsidy is not paid, yeah, for the retail producer. So it's very wrong. It's very wrong. And then, okay, hypothetically speaking, we'll be having this kind of, consumer surplus, the gain for the producers, sorry, the gain for the consumers. We have here the gain for the consumers, the difference between rectangle A and triangle B. So the rectangle A over here, yeah, because you reduce the price, but at the expense of rectangle B. Why? Because now the producers can only produce up to Q1. And then what about the producer surplus? The producer surplus, since you are actually, the government are actually reducing the price, P0 to P max over here. So the area above this supply curve is actually all reduced. Yeah. So the producer surplus, the loss of producer surplus is sum of triangle A, sorry, rectangle A and triangle C. So producer surplus is lost. So, but all in all, we have this consumer surplus over here. We have also the loss in producer surplus A plus C. All in all, we have the dead wet loss B plus C, the one that cannot be absorbed in the economy. So it's gone. Yeah, yeah, it's a lose-lose. Yeah, dead wet loss. Yeah, B and C together measure the dead wet loss of the price control. So we have this dead wet loss. And if the elasticity of the demand here is inelastic, meaning that it's not price sensitive, so the demand should be still there, yeah, given the sensitivity or the dynamics in price. If the demand is sufficiently inelastic over here, yeah, you can see here the demand is quite, still downward sloping, but it's quite steep, yeah, if you compare it with the one that we had earlier. So triangle B can be larger than rectangle A. Why? Because now the producers reduce the production. Okay, we have this also consumer surplus over here, but at the expense of the B part over here because of the inelastic demand. So the overall negative effect to the economy is quite big. So if you have this kind of inelasticity, which is also happening in 2022 at the case of cooking oil. So we had this very, the bigger net, um, it's not net welfare effect, but it's actually a net negative effect. So the negative effect for the price control is actually quite big, and it's giving some kind of the economic burden at that time. Okay, we skip this. Please also try to understand, yeah, the examples within the book, because in the midterm there's actually one case, yeah, that is actually using the case of I say producers and also the consumer surplus price control and so on and so forth. So you need to also understand this example. Please study it by yourself. Okay, the second part is the efficiency of the competitive market. As we already learned that the economy can suffer from the loss, yeah, the deadweight loss, which is actually the market failure. The market failure itself was is actually a derivation, or is actually a consequence of these two attributes: externalities and also lack of information. So we have these negative externalities. We have also the lack of information that is consolidating the deadweight loss, becoming inefficient. So the market inefficiency because of the deadweight loss. So the welfare effect, as I showed you earlier about from the form of the deadweight loss, the welfare effect should be gone, and this welfare effect will be, quite very much depressed if, for example, the elasticity of the demand curve, for example, giving you a bigger deadweight loss. Okay, so we have here another example, the efficiency loss at the competitive market. When we have a price being regulated here as an incentive for the producers to produce, yeah, before we had the price control, the ceiling price, yeah, so taking away the consumer surplus. Now we have the what I say, the price incentive for the producers. So here the producers, so the government incentivize the producers by setting a higher price over here, P2, right? And then price is regulated to be no lower than P2. So as a result, the demand should be, dropped from Q0 over here to Q3. Yeah, and it's actually taking away the consumer surplus. The area below the demand curve, A and B, is consumer surplus. And then we have also, because this is the incentive for producers, as the floor price, for example, we have the harga eceran minimum, right? So the harga eceran tertinggi, sorry, harga eceran tertinggi. So that is actually for the producers, yeah, for to incentivize the producer. I don't know, no, harga eceran tertinggi is the price control that I showed you earlier. Now, for example, this is to incentivize the producers. We have this price premium, yeah, for the producers, so that but this is for our country. This is not not very common, because usually we are incentivizing the consumers, yeah, usually, yeah, with the harga eceran tertinggi, with the price control, the ceiling price, and so on and so forth. But sometime the government can also opt to incentivize the producers by setting a premium price here. Yeah, the floor price over here. So we have this incentive for producers to produce. As a consequence, the consumers are actually losing the part of the consumer surplus, but the producers this time is actually the one that can utilize the producer surplus here at point A. At price P P2, producers would like to produce more than Q3. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, in this price, this is actually incentive to producers to to actually to add the production even more from Q3, from Q0 to Q2. As the demand dropped, yeah, to Q3, but the producers can always actually add, yeah, the supply, the production, because they're seeing now they have a higher price in the market. Uh, for that, yeah, we have um, this one, right? This one. So if the producers are trying to even, produce more than Q3 over here, Q2, right? But the demand is in Q3, so we don't have any equilibrium or whatsoever. So this should be an idle resources. So the idle resources should be a negative effect, yeah, because it's not sold. It's not sold, it's becoming a cost for the producers. So now the producers, yeah, the total change, if we trying to measure the welfare effect, the total change in consumer surplus, of course, A and B, yeah, lost minus A minus B. The total change in producer surplus. Remember, we had this one, A, the rectangle A, which is actually the producer surplus, but it should be, um, uh, offset, yeah, by the point D over here, the area D over here, because this is the idle resources, so minus D. And also point the area over here, C, is the one also, the producers that cannot take, yeah, because yeah, of course we have the A over here as the producers plus, but since the demand is here, so C is cannot be attainable over here. So all in all, the producer surplus A minus C minus D, which is all in all the welfare effect, which will be very much depressed. And if you see from the, the total area over here, the effect should be negative all in all. Okay. Okay. Here, say from here, from the original version over here, the welfare effect should be A minus B minus C, which is actually uh, quite big. Yeah? If you, for example, compare between A, B, and C, maybe we will be facing a surplus over here. Yeah, the producer surplus is big enough to compensate the loss in that wet loss. But if the producers are trying to produce more to point Q2 over here, the D area is over here is offsetting and not matching the overall producer surplus. So all in all, the negative, so the effect should be negative for the economy. The welfare effect should be negative. Another example, if you also consider that labor is actually the supply, yeah, yeah. If you are labor, meaning then you supplying your service, yeah, the supply of labor, right? And the price of labor should be wage over here. Remember the one that we discussed earlier a couple of weeks ago about the cost of production. The cost of production here coming from labor and also capital. If we treat labor as a product, yeah. So the price of labor should be wage, right here. And then if we have the minimum wage, yeah, what is actually the effect of minimum wage? The minimum wage is to increase the baseline welfare effect, to to increase the welfare effect of the labor. But the minimum wage, if it is actually above the market price, yeah, um, why the minimum wage is not in this part is exceeding the market price. Um, if you remember the marginal productivity of labor, right? So the wage is actually, or yeah, the wage is a function of productivity, right? So if you are being more productive, if you're becoming more productive, meaning that your wage will be, quite competitive, right? It's a reflection of productivity. Here, if you see this part, meaning that your productivity level is just below the minimum wage. So this is actually a cost for the industry. And also this can actually push you to another consequence. For example, here under the minimum wage, yeah, we had this the demand, yeah, for the labor, the what do you say, the supply of the labor is not the demand of the labor. The supply of the labor is here because this is the incentive for the labor to enter the industry, right? But because the industry can only afford to hire this amount of labor, L1, so L2 minus L1 should be unemployment, right? Unemployment rate. So, minimum wage is okay, fine. But if it is actually too high, the industry can switch to another mode of production, can use capital, for example, capital intensive production at the expense of labor. So you should be careful with this. Yeah, setting a higher minimum wage, meaning that the cost of production for every industry will be also higher, and bear in mind that in the mid to the long run, you can actually easily substitute labor to capital and labor perfectly substitutes. So with this in mind, maybe there will be a more unemployment, that the economy will be facing, because now the industry is hiring more capital rather than labor. So this is another consequence of setting the minimum wage too high. Okay, what else? Producers, yeah, from the producer's perspective, if the government are trying to push the production, so maybe they can also use this kind of policy, price supports, right? For example, here, to maintain a price above the market price. This is the typical incentive for the producers, right? So you're setting the price above the market price. But as we also learn from the previous example, that this will also causing a deadweight loss, yeah, and the deadweight loss will be even bigger when the producers actually, have some kind of the production overshooting, right? So they will produce until Q1, Q2, and the area over here, yeah, should be, also the negative effect for the economy. But now the government are trying also to absorb that kind of, overshooting in production. So the demand here coming from the government, so D shifting to the D dash over here, D plus Q government over here. So the government buys a quantity of QG, yeah, right? So QG over here, absorbed by the government. So the gain to the producers should be A, B, and D, because now the government are absorbing, yeah, the idle resources, that the one that we had earlier. So that all absorbed by the government. And the consumers, the loss of the consumers should be A and B, right? Still A and B, yeah. The area below the demand curve over here, A and B should be still the part of the consumer loss, yeah, because the higher price, meaning it taking away the consumer surplus. So the total welfare gain should be here. The If the consumer surplus is the area A and B, yeah, loss, yeah, consumer loss, and the producers now have A, B, and D, right? And the government is absorbing, yeah, the Q2 minus Q1, yeah, at the price of PS. So this should be the cost for the government. So we have the total welfare effect should be minus A minus B, which is actually consumer surplus, plus ABD here minus the cost of government. So we have this is actually the D over here. We have the ABD minus A minus B. So that left us only D. Yeah? D minus the cost of intervention. Now, the welfare effect should be determined by this relation, yeah, of the area of D with the cost of intervention. If the area of D outmatching the cost of intervention, so the welfare effect should be positive. So, but if the cost of intervention outmatching the D, so there should be a negative welfare effect. Okay. Okay. What else? Okay, production quotas, supply restriction. So this is another variation of how to incentivize the producers. So in order to incentivize the producers, remember you need to set the price above P0. But here the government are trying to do the price setting strategy by restriction. Yeah, if they restrict the supply curve until this much, okay, so the equilibrium should be here, Q1, so the price should be PS, right? So the producers here gain A, and then also they have also the compensation for the government for not producing more than Q1. Yeah, should be B, C, and D. This should be the area of the incentive. Yeah, from the budget. Yeah, from the government, the state budget. They're giving the incentive for the producers for not producing. So they have the supply restriction. For an incentive to work, it must be at least B, C, and D. So this is the incentive for the government. Because of the government, therefore, at least D, B, and C. So coming back again to the welfare scenario, how can we measure the welfare effect? Of course, the consumers should be the one that is actually losing over here for them from the consumer surplus, A and B. Okay, so we have A minus B. And then we have also, for example, here the producers are typical farmers. We have the producer surplus is A over here, A, okay. And then we have minus C, yeah, because Q0 to Q1, we have the producer surplus, but at the consequence, we are losing, the producers are losing C, okay, minus C. And then plus payments for not producing the incentive, A, which is actually B, C, and D. So if we put it all together, A minus C plus B plus C plus D, we have ABD. ABD, and then we have minus A minus B here. The welfare effect should be minus A minus B plus ABD minus B, C minus D minus B and minus C. So this is the welfare effect, yeah, for the supply restriction, which is actually, yeah, enduring the deadweight loss of B minus C, which is actually quite negative for the economy. Okay, what else? Uh, import quotas. Okay, this is also another example of how the price is set. Yeah, now we are also focusing on the interaction, typical interaction to the nation's interaction, international economics. So we now trying also to open up the economy through import. Okay, in the free market, PW. Okay, so uh, because we have PW, we have the exceeding demand. So the demand outmatch the supply. Okay, from this price. Yeah, PW, because this is not in at this price, which is actually very low, the producers cannot produce more than QS over here because they don't have enough incentive to produce domestically. So as a result, because we have this gap, yeah, we need to import the goods, which is actually fine for the consumers, yeah, because we as the consumers can pay for a very less price, yeah. So the consumer utility function should be better off when the imports are eliminated. So we have here P0 over here. So this, um, as if the producers or the government is setting the price higher than the world price. So this is an incentive to producers to produce. Yeah. So we have here, the producer surplus is increasing. Yeah, A. Yeah. but at the expense of the consumers, A, B, and C. The consumers are losing the consumer surplus because they cannot actually, pay a cheaper price than it was before, because when they face imported price, it's actually cheaper. When the import is eliminated, so they cannot actually pay for a cheaper price anymore. So the consumer surplus is now gone. A minus B and minus C. So we had also the deadweight loss, yeah, because here from the producers, and then we have also the consumers loss, yeah, the demand should be lost, gone. So this is the area that cannot be absorbed by the economy, yeah, because of the restriction in the import. So the deadweight loss would be B and C as the consequence of the import restriction. And we have also another case of tariff and also quotas. For example, if the government are trying to impose tariff in order to restrict import over here, so this is the price, word price, and then this is when the government are trying to put import tariff over here, and then setting higher price. So the producers now are gaining surplus over here. Yeah, tariff is used, but at the expense of the consumer surplus. Consumer loss is A, B, C, and D. The net domestic loss should be B and C, because this part over here, yeah, should be coming to the government, because this extra over here is the government revenue, yeah. So because of the tariff, yeah, we have the producer surplus over here, A, yeah, incentive for the producers to produce. The producers is inefficient. So therefore, to be competitive, the governments need to impose tariff, which is actually a disruption of the efficiency, yeah, for the economy. But since the government are trying to incentivize the producers, which is inefficient producers, these lagging producers, I'm uh, as an international economist, I'm actually against this kind of restriction, because it's very inefficient. But sometimes the government is trying also to protect the domestic industry by setting an imported tariff. Yeah, for example, here. But at the expense of the consumers, right? The consumers need to pay more. So the consumer's utility function is actually diminished and even gone here. And for this case, we have the A, B, C, and D gone. Yeah, the consumer surplus is gone. But the producers, okay, they can have surplus. And the government can also have some extra revenue here. Yeah, D part. So the net domestic, the deadweight loss should be B and C. Another example, if we have quota, for example, imported quota, so still the situation is the same. Yeah, the price is now P star, but since we don't have tariff, the one that actually can have the part of the surplus over here, yeah, is the foreign producers, because they can actually enter our market, yeah, and the profits is not coming to the government. So uh, the net domestic loss should be B, D, and C, because now the government is not having revenue from this part over here. So all in all, we have this deadweight loss, yeah, inefficiency in economy, because the government is trying to protect the domestic industry, but is creating inefficiency and the loss of the consumer's surplus, which is actually depressing the consumer's utility function. Uh, What about another example of the price setting behavior? Now we have, for example, tax incidence. Instead of having a market price, so the government are trying to impose tax, for the product. For example, yeah, this is PB is the price, yeah, paid by the buyers, and PS is the price that the sellers receive, yeah, less than tax. Yes. So the tax is actually divided into the producers and also the consumers. The consumers is having, higher tax, and the producers, the price is actually PS, but they need also to endure some part of the tax here, the gap between P0 and PS. So we have here the some part of the consumer surplus gone, A and B, and we have also some part of the producer surplus also gone, B and C. Okay, so tax is also, depressing the overall economy, creating the, negative welfare effect. And then this can be, mm, who is actually facing the higher burden, the producers or the consumers. It depends. It depends on the elasticity. If the demand is quite inelastic, yeah, the demand curve is quite inelastic. So the one that endure most of the tax is for the consumer. But if the supply curve is inelastic, so the one that endure the tax more is actually the producer. So it depends on the inelasticity or elasticity. Um, if you remember a while ago, some weeks ago, I also gave you some videos on the middle class. So as I told you earlier, the middle class is now struggling and is even shrinking. So in terms of population, now we have only 47 million of the middle class compared to 5 years ago, 57 million. So all in all, we have almost 10 million of the middle class, yeah, going down, yeah, to the aspiring middle class. To the middle class is shrinking. Now the part of that is actually getting bigger is the aspiring middle class. The level that is actually below the middle class. So it's quite somewhat, concerning. And if you dig more, the total expenditure of the middle class, if we disaggregate the, expenditure perspective from the middle class, the first part of the highest contributors for the expenditure for the middle class, 41.67% of which coming to food. And the second one, yeah, the second largest contribution coming from housing, 28%. And the third largest contribution coming from tax. Right. So this is very much concerning when you tax the economy even more, especially in this time, because we have the sluggish demand. The middle class is also struggling. The retail index is also some kind of declining. The car sales is declining. The consumers are now having a down trading, right? They have a less income than before. And with this kind of situation is actually very much concerning if the government trying to impose a higher tax. As we learned from the news, we had this plan of we'll be having VAT from 11% to 12%. We have also the excise tax. We have also the insurance pay, yeah, getting higher next year. So this will actually, give more tension, especially to the consumers' perspective. So this will take away part of the consumer surplus, which is actually not very good for the economy, especially in this condition when the middle class is struggling and shrinking. Okay, what we need is more subsidy, right? Yeah, to push the economy, and Pak Prabowo wants the economy to be more than 6%, and the target is 8%. So we need to push the consumption. How? Yeah, subsidy, not tax. So this is the subsidy. Subsidy is the negative tax. So the the producers and also the consumers can have actually more surplus if the government is giving the subsidy. As we already learned nowadays, the producers are already experiencing a higher producers price index, meaning the cost of production is getting higher and higher, coming from the energy and coming from the rupiah's depreciation for the last couple of months. that actually depressing the purchasing manager index in manufacturing, just like what I told you some weeks ago. The purchasing manager index in manufacturing, it's now below 50, meaning that the industry now in a contraction mode. It's not in expansion mode, but it's under a contraction mode. And then they are struggling, but the producers trust index is high, of course, but they cannot actually transmit this higher price in cost of production to the consumer, because they know that the consumer is also struggling, right? So now the government are trying also, according to the plan, to increase the tax next year to increase the government revenue for the state budget, which is actually quite very much concerning given this situation. What the government need to do is to give more subsidy, especially in terms of the cost of production, not for the energy, but for the cost of production, especially for the producer's perspective. Maybe giving some kind of the tax relax, tax incentive, and so on and so forth. Tax incentive is also a kind of subsidy, right? Negative tax. So that's actually the one that we need to do, yeah, in order to push the economy even further. Okay, I think this is all for today, and thank you for what for your attention, and then yeah, good luck for your midterm, and I hope this video can help you to learn chapter 9, although it's not ideal, but of course, I hope that this can actually add more of your knowledge. Thank you and goodbye.